Yo, hi, welcome to 8 Weeks In, and how are you doing? My name is Robin Church. I am the NewPath Family Support Director, a program of the Arc of Virginia. And what we do is we're a family support program working for families whose child or children ages 0 to 5, and or receiving early intervention services throughout the state of Virginia. We also help support families who are transitioning their child from Part C to Part B. And with me, I have Kathleen Gibson from PEATC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathleen Gibson. I'm the Early Childhood Specialist here at PEATC. PEATC is Virginia's Parent Training Information Center, and our mission is to empower families of children with disabilities to be better advocates for their children. We help parents get the resources and information that they need to make informed decisions on navigating special education and disability services systems. In addition to early childhood, we have targeted areas that include Latino outreach, military outreach, transition and adulthood, family engagement, and bullying prevention. All of our services are free of charge and are completely confidential. Now that you know who we are, let's get started. So our first question, is there any way to get a more specialized curriculum for my first grader that includes more language? So generally speaking, general education classrooms are going to be language enriched because they have peer models for socialization and communication. However, for this question, Robin and I kind of need more information to appropriately answer it to ensure that we understand the specific concern. Robin and I's contact information is at the end of this presentation, so we can reach out to you. Our next question, how are schools honoring IEP and 504 accommodations during virtual learning? So how to implement accommodations for virtual learning is really a discussion to have with your child's teacher and or the IEP team. The accommodations should meet the needs of the student based on the instruction delivery. So whether that's virtual, in person, or hybrid. If the accommodations are not working and or not being delivered, talk to the IEP case manager and coordinator. You can also ask for specific supplementary aids that your child uses at school to be successful, be also provided at home for virtual learning. So like sensory tools, specialized chairs, slant boards, for example. PEATC has a great back to school planning guide that outlines many of these considerations and may give you additional ideas on how to help your student be successful. And we have the link here on this slide.
And so the next question is, how are mental health supports being addressed in school? So with this question, of course, this can be pretty tricky because mental health concerns in many ways are not really seen. So it's a disability that is not obvious to the naked eye, so to speak. And because of this, it's important to provide documentation to your school administration, to your child's teacher, and moving forward with the IEP. If your child already has an IEP, it's okay to call a meeting to brainstorm some ideas that will better help your child. And please remember that communication is key. It's number one in helping your child succeed. Can I be compensated for the supplies we purchased to supplement my child's schooling? So this is kind of a tricky question also. However, a request to hold an IEP, a request. So, okay, I'm trying to figure this one out. So with this question here, it is kind of tricky because if your child has an IEP that needs some accommodations, that should be put into the IEP that would help him or her at home as well as at school. As far as other purchases for school supplies, I'm not sure that that the school would be able to supplement those. However, I can't speak for the schools because I'm not very sure about that. So if your child needs something like a read aloud, so if your child has an IEP and if your child was in school, they would be receiving read aloud accommodations. That is something that could be done in the home setting through virtual learning. And so again, that would go back to the IEP team to have that discussion on how that accommodation would be addressed and administered for your child.
Next question. Yeah, this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I get the school to comply with IEP and IDEA? So if you feel like the IEP is not being followed, you really need to communicate with the IEP team in writing about your specific concerns. It may require a meeting to be addressed, it may not. It could be that the IEP needs to be amended for the virtual learning environment. Maybe the IEP was written for in-person learning, or maybe last year's virtual learning when it happened in the spring, and it hasn't been updated for this year, which looks very differently. Or maybe the IEP has been updated, but it needs to be tweaked now that we're a few weeks into the school year. So if you feel like you've exhausted all of these options already, then you could follow procedural safeguards. There's a great Parents Guide to Special Education you may have heard called the Purple Book that you can refer to. PEATC can also help you through your specific situation and explore solutions with you. And it's important to remember that your special education rights are still intact. So if you have more specific concerns, reach out to us at PEATC. Next question. What are the current regulations on what early intervention is going to be doing as far as visiting in home versus telehealth for care? So a few days after OSEP released guidance in March, Infant Toddler Connection of Virginia, which is our early intervention agency here, released a COVID-19 policies and procedures document, issuing several temporary policies and procedures to support providers in developing services that are consistent with the most updated public health and safety recommendation. Mm-hmm. These temporary policies were last updated in May and are still in effect until further notice. So to answer the question, big picture, if a local agency is closed due to public health and safety concerns, services are not required to be delivered during the closure. If the agency is open and services cannot be provided at a particular location due to safety concerns, then services must be provided in an alternate location, such as at a clinic setting, using a different provider, or through telehealth, phone, or video conferencing like Zoom. Protecting the health and safety of the child, family, and those providing the service is paramount. So it's important that we remember that. Eligibility determination, assessment for service planning, the individualized family service plan meetings, reviews, and services may be conducted through telehealth if the parent agrees. So talk to your service coordinator. It's always important to remember too that early intervention is family focused and parent coaching is a cornerstone to that program. To some degree, this is a highlight compared to school-based services currently.
This is such great information. Okay, Zoom has been a horrible experience. How can I help the school to support my child more? So this question, and I think a lot of people probably relate to this question as Zoom being horrible. I don't want to say that's kind of a tough word, but I know it's been difficult for many. And so keeping an open mind and a line of communication with your child's teacher is key to a successful school year, whether in person or online. If you feel like you need to help the school support your child, that would certainly be a discussion that I would recommend you having with your child's teacher to talk about your child, what they're doing, how they're doing their work, if they're able to stay focused, what is it that could be more helpful. Maybe it's something in the home, maybe it's something with Zoom, I'm not sure, but having that open communication and discussion with the teacher would be key, I would think. And talk about your child's participation. Does your child have barriers where they're having difficulties engaging and in the classroom setting virtually? So that's something else to keep in mind. Kathleen, you have anything to include?
I do. So anytime I hear a question like this, I try to dig in a little bit deeper and find out what's so quote, quote, horrible about it. Right. Is it horrible because of the internet? Is it choppy? Right. Is it computer resource? Right? Some of our computers, when you have a lot of videos running at the same time, can be what we call in IT, quote, quote, resource hogs. So it drains the computer, right? And so we at PEATC have an intro to Zoom resource document that we can share that has basic tips for usability. But if this experience, when we say Zoom is a horrible experience, if the experience is related to virtual learning itself, and your child has an IEP, again, talking to your IEP team about addressing specific needs and concerns that you have on how to support your child. We talk a lot about communication, and it really is a big topic.
Yeah, it's very important to keep communication open, even offering suggestions.
Absolutely.
In a respectful and patient kind of way. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thanks,
So
Robin.
the next question, remote learning at home, and our kiddo is not listening to the live sessions, not completing assignments, and fiddling with the computer. What kind of behavior plan can I ask the IEP team to implement? So this question I hear a lot, and I don't think it's uncommon for our younger folks to struggle with engaging with virtual learning and trying to understand what this is all about. Because, I think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Kathleen, or anyone actually, because I think this virtual learning is just new for everybody, and we're all trying to figure it out. Including our kids, including parents, including teachers. And it's really difficult, but it is a great question, but also one that could be brought back to the IEP team or the teacher and asking questions, about what could be done, what can the school do to help with a behavior plan. However, with it being in the home, I'm not sure how that would be addressed, but having a discussion with other parents would also be helpful, and finding out what other parents do and what works for them. It's a great time to network with other parents, and we're all on the Zoom thing together, right? So if there's some way that we can communicate through the chat box, please know that you can communicate through the chat box, maybe in a private message to a parent or to the teacher even, to talk about what help you may need. So it's a good way to keep that in mind, to just communicate with one another. Again, there's that word, communication.
Right. It goes back to that it takes a village, right? So,
right.
Going back to communication, talking to the IEP team about behavioral strategies and parent training. So we often overlook parent training as a related services in our child's IEP, but parent training is an option to address possible behavior challenges and strategies that can be used to mitigate some of that. Mm-hmm. I do have a lot of great resources in my toolbox, if you will, that I can share that have tips on supporting positive behavior at home. It's important to remember too that what works for one child may not work for another child, and it may take a few tries to find out what works best for your kid. As Robin mentioned, especially with our littles in early childhood. So I have a kindergartner that is attending virtually. And our kids are not really, it's not developmentally appropriate for a preschool or kindergarten, for example,
right.
necessarily to be online multiple hours during the day.
Right.
And so really kind of talking about, I know Robin mentioned like maybe fidgets, or maybe she was going to talk about that later, but talking about fidget spinners, or maybe they need to stretch their legs. Now for my son, that wouldn't work. Like if he gets up, he's not going to sit back down. So, unfortunately for us, he's only on, with the exception of his other services for class itself, it's only for 1 hour. So, mm-hmm. And I know some divisions are doing much longer than that. But really talking with the team and kind of brainstorming solutions, because I guarantee even if your child doesn't have an IEP, they can still have behavioral challenges when you're sitting in a chair staring at a computer screen.
Yeah, and you please feel free to communicate with your child's teacher, especially a little one, to see if there's any way that maybe virtually online for a very short time, and then everything else could be in writing. Again, you can call that shot and bring it up to the IEP team, or if you don't have your child does not have an IEP, then bring it up to the teacher and tell them that small increments of computer time is really probably better for your child, but your child best. Yeah. So I would, yeah. Okay. So, are parents allowed to be in the room during virtual learning? Generally speaking, I would say yes. However, I personally have not heard of a locality that is not allowing parents to sit by their children. Even high schoolers, I think it's okay for parents to sit by the child. But I would contact the school or email the teacher just to double check, make sure, because sometimes I think there may be some barriers for children that whose parents do not allow them to be maybe on camera or on film in any way. And I would think that those children are probably not showing their picture on Zoom. So, but double check with your teacher. I think that's a great question. And it's a respectful one, but I would just double check with the teacher to make sure it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's your child and it's your home. So, yeah. All right. So is it best for parents to sit beside their student who isn't listening? Okay, so that's kind of hand in hand with the the one we were just reading, and I can personally I feel this question. I feel this question personally with my own kids. So you do have, please remember to do what works for you and your child. No one knows your child better than you. So some ideas work for some kiddos, like Kathleen was saying earlier, and some do not. But your child may also benefit from having something to fidget with, like Kathleen was saying. I do think it's important to have something, if they're not listening, they're not engaging, there's a reason for that. And that could be that they're, maybe they just need something in their hands to rub on, or a fidget spinner to spin. For one of my kids, we had put Velcro up underneath the kitchen table so that when he sits at the table, he can rub that. He has sensory issues. So when he rubs that, it helps him stay focused on what's going on the computer. So just trying some different strategies at home would probably be a good idea. Talk with other parents, talk with the teacher, and just try to figure it out. I hate to say that, but it's kind of, that's kind of where we are,
Right.
because this is a whole new world. And so, but those are some suggestions that I would make, as just a fidget spinner or something soft, maybe some putty or something to play with or to have in their hand. And maybe they're not engaged. Maybe they're not liking what they're learning. That can sometimes, if they're not interested, they're not going to engage. And so sometimes we have to brainstorm and figure out other ways to engage. And learning through play is always best for the little ones.
Absolutely. Another option could be the use of a visual schedule and or cue. Those have helped some of our kids. I know for my son, sometimes, like if his father is sitting next to him, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. He gets very distracted and he says, "Mommy, mommy," and he calls for me, or he calls for his sister. And I think that's just because for him, I think this is very important to remember too, is that, home is our sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And now, for many of us is now also our workplace. It's also our school. It's also home. So we don't really have a place to decompress. And, our kids feel that too. So I think, for our specific instance, daddy is the one who plays with him and does all this stuff. Daddy doesn't do schoolwork. And so if daddy's there, he's like, I don't want to listen. Right. So I think that that's kind of a big picture too, is kind of really figuring out, is it that we need to change up the environment? Is it we need to be engaged? Maybe we're just not feeling it that day, right? Our littles are just like adults. Sometimes we just don't feel it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It sure does. It sure does.
So our next question. So during in-live instruction, the teacher is giving instructions verbally, which overwhelms our kiddo. What suggestions can I ask our IEP team to ensure there's written lessons for her to visualize? So again, this goes back to communication, right? So communicate with a teacher and request written lesson plans and our bullet points with simple and concise instructions before the lesson. You could also ask for visual presentations of verbal material. If needed, you can ask for it to be listed as an accommodation. However, this is generally a best practice to accommodate various learning styles of students. So you might not need an IEP team meeting. You might not need to listen as accommodation. Just reach out to the teacher. Not everything requires an IEP meeting. So this was our favorite question, right, Robin?
Yes, it was.
So how do
It
I find
was.
so how do I find an advocate? So PEATC has a fact sheet on working with an advocate or attorney that has some information and questions that you can ask when hiring an advocate. And we strongly recommend using due diligence as you would hiring anyone. With that said, Robin and I knew when we read this, there were other layers to this question. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that too.
That's right. And so since hiring an advocate is an expense, we're all going through hard times right now. So it's important to ask why and really think about why do I need an advocate? What is it? Have I communicated with the school my concerns? Have I had that discussion? Have we communicated properly? And what is the goal with an advocate, and what can an advocate do that I feel like I am not confident in doing or addressing myself? So with that, I would say, I would reach out to PEATC to see how to use, what vocabulary to use, how to go in to an IEP meeting, how to request certain things. I will say that I know personally, I know myself, it's hard and sometimes it's very frustrating and we're overwhelmed. And the biggest piece to remember is that our emotions are involved. So it's extremely hard when our emotions are tangled up in it. So sometimes speaking with somebody like Kathleen with PEATC that's free can be so empowering and so helpful. So I do want to say that before, taking that other route, just so that you understand maybe where the school is and what avenues or what vocabulary may be helpful. So this is a lifelong journey that we're in with our kids with IEPs. It's probably not going to go away. And so hiring an advocate can, really fundamentally change the relationship with your child's school. And I don't say that to scare you. I say that so that you know that once a lawyer or an advocate is brought into the picture, it could kind of change the way the school, and the way the school will may communicate with you. But again, I would, instead of going that route, I would suggest going straight to Kathleen. Her information is going to be at the very end, as well as mine, but I would communicate with Kathleen and just have a heart to heart and say, look, this is what I've done. I'm about to lose my mind. Please help me with this. And she would be very helpful. So that would be my advice.
Right. And I think right now, and Robin and I have touched on this, is right now we're living through a pandemic, right? We're living through something that's not our normal. And so aside from just being emotional on a normal day, quote, quote, we have a lot more layers that we're trying to juggle, right? Like I said, we've moved learning into our homes. Maybe we don't have the resources and the supports in the village there anymore. And so really kind of just talking about it and kind of working through it. And having the tools that we need to effectively advocate and communicate are so essential. So, educating ourselves on the process, on our rights and responsibilities, and even about our child's disability, learning how to advocate, learning the lingo. Robin mentioned learning that language, and speaking with other families. So all of those tools together kind of help us grow and help our child be successful as they can be later on. So important, working collaboratively, we improve those opportunities and success in school and community for our child, not just now, but in the future. So there is a time and place that I do think that having an advocate and or an attorney present do help. And that is a route that some have to take. However, a lot of these happen because of communication breakdowns and emotions.
Yeah, that's so true. You had touched on something earlier, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but I want to share something that you had mentioned earlier that I have heard many people talk about. And I think we're all feeling so much stress now, especially with, during the summer, it wasn't so bad, but now that our kids are back at school and what that looks like and having that happen in the home is extremely hard and extremely difficult. And, people are working from home, school is at home. There's so much happening at home. There's, like Kathleen said, there's no way to get away from it. And so you don't have that, I had a mom tell me this one time, so I don't want to take her words from her, but she told me one time, I don't have a home anymore because our home is our workplace. It's school. It's everything but home. And so when I say that, it makes me wonder, I hope everybody is okay. I hope everybody is healthy. I hope everybody is able to take care of themselves, because we are in an era right now that is extremely difficult for all of us. And so I think it's really important to just remember that and try to find some downtime, try to find some time away, just to kind of breathe.
Right.
So I had to throw self-care is, self-care is huge.
Yeah, we were I was talking to another parent yesterday about that. And
yeah,
I had a mini cupcake and she had walked 10 minutes that day. So we felt pretty good about our self-care that day. Totally fine.
That's good.
But yeah. And also I think too, when we're talking about, how do I find an advocate, is recognizing that as a parent, you are an equal member of the IEP team, but you also have a lot of power in that you don't have to sign the IEP if you don't agree with it.
Right.
So, talking through that and working for it, because it's to the benefit of everyone involved, right, that we collaborate and that we work together for our kids. So.
Good point.
So in summary, we talked a lot about this. So there's a key to remember that the I in IEP is individualized, and the IEP should meet the individual needs of your child. We've talked about communication and collaboration in a lot of these slides, Robin.
Yes, we have.
And it's key, right? So it's important to keep a clear line of communication on what is working and what is not working for your child. And it's okay to go back to the quote drawing board, if you will, to figure out what works best. And if it's appropriate, if your child's older, include your child in those conversations. Ask them what's working, what's not working. Also, you want to make sure that your child's IEP is reflective of current present levels, their needs, their accommodations are needed and supports. And then also that there's been no waivers granted to the protections under IDEA, which is the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, and our federal special education law. It remains intact during COVID-19. A lot of people don't know that, so that's important. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not with that. No, you wrapped that up perfectly. So in concluding this, this presentation, please remember that this is a very hard time. I know I've said it so many times already, but this is a very hard time for everyone, for our children, for our teachers, for parents. And we are all trying to navigate these difficult circumstances and different circumstances. So please try and be patient, continue to communicate with your child's teacher and ask questions. And, it's okay to even ask the teacher to please be patient. Sometimes with my kids, patience is a virtue and is extremely hard sometimes, but, we all have to do this together. And so the partnership is crucial right now.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions, both NewPath at the Arc of Virginia and PEATC are here to help you. You can reach out to us, you can call us, and we can kind of talk through and work through. And I know with NewPath, they can connect you with other parents.
Yes, we can. We can connect you with other parents that are going through the same thing that you're going through, and try to connect you with those as a simultaneous connection there, so that you guys can network together and kind of grow together and be part of our support group that we'll be launching soon. So give us a call. Give me a call. That's my number, 804-649-8481, extension 102, or email me at ourchurch@thearcofva.org.
Absolutely. And on our website, on the PEATC website, which is listed right there, www.peatc.org, PEATC.org. We have a lot of our fact sheets are there, as well as the events and webinars that we host. And you can always, in your area, request a webinar be completed. We are doing some of those in person, as well as online. With that, have a great night.
Bye, guys.